Hi, I'm Yunè Pinku and I'm here with Future Music Magazine to talk about my new EP. I was making sort of soundscape noise stuff for I think the first 3 years, and then slowly sort of made it into more formulated music and stuff, and then it was more like indie, rocky and poppy stuff, and then kind of went into more like garagey, breaky stuff. I started out using SoundLab, which is like very bare bones on just like an iPad or something, and then my cousin of mine sent me like a link to a software called Madoka, which is like all in Japanese, and then yeah, I had no idea what it was saying, but it did very well, and now it's gone. For me, it was the first time doing like actual live recordings in the room and stuff, and then because we got like drummers in and guitarists and stuff, and so yeah, it's pretty fun to kind of meld sort of more organic and like electronic elements like in drums and stuff. That was first. Some of it was like I'd do like a pretty rough job, and then when we come in here we might like fix it up a bit or whatever, but I think for the most part it was sort of like free reign, and then we just got everyone to sort of just try whatever they wanted over all the music, and then we just picked out bits and then all that jazz. But yeah, so I do like 60 to 70% of the demos at home, and then they're like very like rough jobs where it's sort of like quite trash vocals and but then we come in here when they're like in a good place, and then use all the fancy gadgets and stuff to like boost everything up and just make all the sounds like I think a bit more like sophisticated and stuff. Yeah, it's like quite funny actually, because like you'd think it would be much more interesting than it actually is. But I like use a podcast mic and then a really like garbage little keyboard and just go to town. It's quite cool sometimes to put like the kind of fancy version on top of the garbage version, because then it sort of makes everything a bit like more sonically interesting, I think. But yeah, I could like a variety. I quite like the ways you find textures, like where you could literally just like record anything right now and then it'd be picking up the sound in the background anyway, and then you could like stretch it and it would be a completely different sound and stuff. And but I think it's quite cool because literally anything you can sample, like, and yeah, I think with textures you can like add so much, especially with like percussion and drums and stuff. I think I use Logic because it's the only one I could figure out. I think the rest of them just seemed too analog and I couldn't wrap my head around it. Yeah, I think a lot of people gravitate towards Logic for vocal recording and then Ableton for production, but I was too lazy to learn anything except Logic, so I use a lot of Sound Toys plugins and Baby Audio, and yeah, I feel like they just are always good for just adding in sort of. I think Baby is good for like unexpected stuff that you wouldn't necessarily think of, and then Sound Toys is just great for like making sounds, especially with samples like better and all that jazz. But yeah, I think some of these bad boys were used, but I think not sure the specific ones to be fair, but I think there is kind of a selection of like Korg, Roland, and maybe Prophet. But I mean, it was sort of again like a bit of like quite a computery job of just sort of messing around on there and stuff. So I think she was here because she's based in LA, and she was here doing some sessions and stuff. And then I think it was like either the first or second session we did where we wrote Believe, but it was very like sort of spontaneous, and I think it was one of those ones where it was like you don't kind of actively write it; it just sort of happens, which is always nice. But yeah, it was good. And then we sort of ticked away at it for like a fairly long time, and then me and Ollie in here were like adding guitar bits and stuff, and then sort of sending back and forth over text and stuff. But yeah, it was really nice. It was sort of all very organic, I think. But yeah. I think ARPs are definitely seem to be like a reoccurring thing, which I kind of didn't realize until I was listening back to everything recently. And I was like, there's ARPs, everything on everywhere. But I think that, and then I think like contrast is always sort of something that I seem to gravitate towards in music. And then so if like the drums are quite hard, then like the synths are going to be like the opposite end of it, where it's going to be like ah like but yeah, so I think probably just contrast generally, like even in some of the songs in the EP, I think like the lyrics are like an opposite energy to like what the song actually sounds like and stuff. But that song was kind of like a slower process, I think, because it was like one of the first demos that was done, and then but I think we added in some of the weirder vocal stuff like very last minute, and like it was sort of, I think it's just more like a mess around where you get so kind of ear blind after a while to a song that it's kind of good to just throw in something a little bit different. But yeah, I think it was sort of, I was listening to loads of Madonna, and like she does loads of like weird spoken word stuff, and I was just thinking about that, so just ripped that. I think they're always changing a bit, but I think probably a lot of Massive Attack for now, I think, has been a big influence, and I think just kind of generally like kind of more experimental, but like semi-mainstream artists, where even like Madonna's Ray of Light was definitely something I was listening to a lot on like around making this one, and then like Radiohead, and I think like different bits of different sort of albums and stuff kind of amalgamating a bit, but yeah, probably those three mainly for this one. I think because it was like fully sort of singular like before, where I was just making it like completely on my own, and then and I think it took me a while to sort of shake that habit a bit, because I found it just quite weird like working with other people and kind of including other people in a process that was like it felt very personal before. And I think now I really quite like collaboration and stuff, and have sort of realized that like everyone can kind of pinch in different ideas and stuff and all that. But yeah, so I think definitely it's always a bit of a journey, and I think, but in a nice way, I think everyone sort of had the same thing after the pandemic, where you're sort of shaking off the cobwebs of being pretty like insular or whatever. I'm kind of curious about like just sort of blending genres a bit more and stuff, and or even just like borrowing bits that traditionally belong to one genre or whatever. So I always think like, I don't know, like it'd be quite cool to make like an electronic rock album or something if that was possible. But yeah, just sort of messing around a bit more with genres, and I think also it's just always great when there's like a base of people that are already there and stuff, because then I feel like you feel like in a better position to be a bit more experimental and stuff. So